We mourn for those who were murdered on October the 7th, for the soldiers who have fallen, for innocent civilians whose lives have been lost. Every life.
I just can't stand apologetic Jews, self-hating Jews, the Jews coming out of Israel, the Jews coming out of America, the Jews coming out of the world, who just constantly go out of their way to try and justify to the world our actions by basically hating on what the Jewish people are doing, by basically giving more care and value to the Palestinians, by saying things like, before we get there, there's this belief somewhere that if you can just prove to the world how much you care about others more than you care about yourself, then they will finally see that you are a good person. And I just want to say that if you were a mother who cared more about somebody else's children than you did about your own, then nobody would look at that and say, wow, what an amazing woman. They would look at that and they'd say, oh, there's something wrong with you. Now, I'm not calling out every liberal Jew or every Jew out there who doesn't like the Israeli government. That's your prerogative. Go for it. But I've had enough of you trying to explain and constantly creating this pressure to always be advocating for the other side instead of just plainly stating, hey, I like my family the most. And they might not do everything right, but they're my family and I've got their back like they've got mine. Instead, they have this need to say things like, the Palestinians deserve a right to self-determination. First of all, they don't actually. They've lost that right because they could have self-determined in Gaza and they lost it. But outside of the fact that it is like an intellectual argument of if there even is a Palestinian thing, if that even exists, we can talk about that another time. Really, you have to be talking about our hostages who were brutalized in such an insane way in the same lung space. Use those words that you have to talk about Palestinians' right to self-determination. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. And I also can't stand it happening in Israel. It's a different problem. The Israelis who are like, look, I love Israel, but my government's the worst. You don't have to support everything that your government does. I don't support everything the government does. But you don't have to go out there and constantly show your moral integrity by proving and by putting pressure, by the way, on a lot of other people in the world to kind of explain things that you disagree with. What's wrong with saying something along the lines of, I really love Israel. I really want those just to come on. I think Hamas are bad. And just like ending there, instead of adding things like the Palestinians are starving and my heart's breaking for them. Not relevant. You don't have to speak about that all the time. And adding things like, of course, I don't support my government. My government is terrible and the decisions they're making. You also don't have to say that. Because what's happening is we're creating this narrative in which we are forced continuously to apologize on behalf of the actions that actually do represent a big part of Israel and do represent a big part of a lot of Jewish people don't feel like the Palestinians should have self-determination on Israel's land. But again, that's the intellectual part of this argument. We're not getting into that. What I want to say is that a few days ago, there was a protest in London and some rabbis got on there and they were obviously from a much, much more liberal part of Judaism. Okay. And the reason that I have a problem with this kind of liberal side of Judaism, again, I'm not against liberals. If you want to be a liberal Jew, go for it. But I am against liberals who do things that are directly impacting the Jewish people. Like, for example, liberals, Jews who are supporting Mamdani because they think that socialism, is more of an important value than Jew hate. That to me is problematic. Look, you want to believe in socialism? I don't think it holds. I don't think it stands the argument. I don't think it works. But that's your prerogative. But you can't believe in socialism more than you believe in your family's right to exist and live and not be killed and hated. That's what I think about it. And I can't stand the Jews out there either who decided that they need to vote for Kamala because women's rights are more important to them than Jewish rights. We didn't have time to test out this theory, but Kamala hated us. And she would have done terrible, terrible things to Israel. Now, I also can't stand people who are out there saying so many negative things about Israel all of the time, calling out our government all of the time, and doing just so much damage, airing our dirty laundry all of the time. You don't need to. Keep it internal. If you don't like our Israeli government, build a new one. That's it. Don't go out there constantly criticizing them online. It just doesn't do us any help and do us any favors. So I'm just against all of it. All of this kind of online narrative and out there narrative where people don't realize that being Jewish is your first and foremost priority. Supporting the Jewish people is your first and foremost priority. Jews against Israel? Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. Jews for Gaza? Don't even get me started. But all of these things combined are problematic to me because I think and believe inherently that being a Jewish person is the most essential part of our identity, and it is a massively, massively positive thing, but it's something that we all have to hold with proud. Anyway, so I'm veering off topic because I feel very strongly about this, but there was this protest in England. I don't even know what it was for. I was in one of the groups of people who were involved in creating this protest. It was probably something for the hostages, and obviously the rabbis get up there, and these are rabbis from a much more left-wing denomination of Judaism, and they kind of get on there and they're like, hostages coming home are super important. Hostages coming home is very, very, very important. Super important. But the people responsible for the hostages coming home is Hamas, not the government. Hamas, and our government's done everything that it can, but again, I'm not getting into this. Let's watch this video for a second. I would love to hear your thoughts.
I'm honored to introduce Rabbi Charlie Baginski and Rabbi Josh Levy.
Rhetoric like this does lasting damage to Israel. With those protesting last night, tens of thousands of Israeli Jews gathered on the streets to protest for the release of the hostages.
No benefit.
They protested against Hamas. They protested against policies and rhetoric that doesn't allow the hostages to come home.
They did not protest against Hamas, by the way. They were protesting solely against our government, just to be very, very clear. And that's what she's actually saying.
And we must be brave and honest enough to do so.
What do you gain from this?
Rhetoric like this does lasting damage to Israel.
No, it doesn't.
With those protesting in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, and across Israel, we call for an end to this war through a deal that brings the hostages home.
By the way, so many Israelis are not calling for an end to this war. They're just not the ones out there protesting. And 10,000 people protesting is not a huge amount, considering the fact there are like 10 million people living in Israel. It's just all of this apologetic thing that they do over and over and over and over again. We have to end this war. It's causing damage. Look, England's damaged already. You guys are in so much trouble. And the reason is because you use the strategy. You use the strategy of just thinking that if you could suck up to the leadership and suck up to the minorities, then you'll be okay. Unfortunately, the Islamists use that against you and they're coming to destroy your country now. It's not going to work for Israel, and Israel's not going to use the strategy, but them pulling out these 10,000 people who are protesting against the government, not against Hamas, as she said, and saying that we all want the end of the war. We don't all want the end of the war, actually. What we want is the end of Hamas. Very, very big difference.
And the permanent restoration of humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Not true. Don't want that, actually. Rubbish. What?
Let us be clear about Palestinian statehood. The Palestinian people, like us, have the right to self-determination.
Stop! Shush! Shah! But we'll listen.
But how it is done matters too.
They're booing him.
We reject a methodology that tries to force this
Boo him.
through violence, terror, and the suffering of civilians.
They're booing him.
Statehood cannot be built on the blood of innocence.
No one cares what he's saying.
Peace will never grow from the soil of pain and hatred.
We say this because we affirm our common humanity. We mourn for those who were murdered on October the 7th, for the soldiers who have fallen, for innocent civilians whose lives have been lost. Every life.
They literally got booed off the stage. Now, I feel very bad for them. I would not want to be on a stage where tons of people boo you for the things that you believe in. That is not a nice thing. But at the end of the day, stop apologizing for being Jewish. Stop apologizing for the actions of a country that is there to defend you. And stop doing it to make you sound like a good human. Because you are a good human. Being a Jewish, we are good people. People are good inherently. You can stop trying to prove to the world how good you are because you care so much about the Palestinians. And I'm proud of the audience who booed these people down. Not because I think it's a positive thing, but because I think we have to stop with this nonsense rhetoric of constantly explaining. You do not have to make a speech at a hostage rally about the Palestinians' right to self-determination and about how much humanitarian aid we need to continue. It just doesn't need to be it. Just doesn't need to be it. Focus on the hostages. Focus on the depravity of Hamas. Focus there. Focus where the attention is correct. And maybe we'll have a chance at this. But Jews out there who are constantly just trying to apologize for what the Jewish people are doing in Gaza. I've had enough of you. I don't think that you are correct. I don't think it is the right way. And it's definitely not winning us any sort of favor. You are just pandering to the people who hate you anyway. So come to us. Come to the Jewish people who love you and support you and who believe in your right to live, and stop trying to explain and justify the people who hate you enough that they would, at the end of the day, happily see you dead, not just booed off a stage.